with Israel threatening to launch a ground offensive in Gaza. For most of the 2.3 million Palestinians in the enclave, the Rafah border crossing represents their only potential exit. It is also the besieged territory's sole remaining lifeline to the outside world, which is controlled by Egypt under a 2007 deal with Israel, but supplies coming into Gaza through Rafah require Israeli approval. The Palestinian cause has long enjoyed widespread support in Egypt. Cairo also criticized Israel's bombardment of the Gaza Strip, saying Tel Aviv had exceeded the right to self-defense as it tries to mediate talks between Hamas, which attacked Israel on October 7, and Tel Aviv. However, the border has been closed for much of the past week, with neither Gazans nor foreign nationals able to cross, and tons of vital humanitarian supplies for people in Gaza piling up on the Egyptian side of the border. Is Egypt reluctant to open the border? Despite Cairo's support for the Palestinian cause, does it fear an influx of Palestinians? Israel's call on October 12 for half of the Gaza Strip's population to evacuate south while imposing a total blockade on the supply of food, fuel, medical supplies, and other essentials to the enclave has led leadership of Egypt, which borders Gaza and Israel, to frantically try to negotiate the entry of humanitarian aid through its crossing into the Palestinian territory. Cairo has blamed Israel for not taking a position on opening the crucial border to allow aid in the besieged territory.
حتى الآن للأسف لم تتخذ الحكومة الإسرائيلية موقف يؤتي بإمكانية فتح المعبر من ناحية غزة، السماح بدخول المساعدات أو خروج المواطنين من دول ثالثة.
On October 15th, the U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, announced that an agreement was reached between Egypt, Israel, and the U.S. allowing humanitarian aid into Gaza. But the announcement was short on details on when the border will open.
With regard to Rafah, I had a very good conversation with President al-Sisi. We have put in place, and Egypt has put in place, a lot of material support for people in Gaza. And Rafah will be open. We're putting in place with the United Nations, with Egypt, with Israel, with others, the mechanism by which to get the assistance in and to get it to the people who need it.
A day later, Egyptian security sources told Reuters that an agreement had been reached to open the crossing to allow aid into the enclave. But Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office soon issued a statement, saying, "There is currently no truce and humanitarian aid in Gaza in exchange for getting foreigners out." This dashed all hopes for a brief ceasefire in southern Gaza to allow foreign passport holders to leave the besieged Palestinian enclave and for aid to be brought in. Earlier, on October 14th, a week into the conflict, reports emerged of Egyptian workers erecting concrete blocks along their side of the Rafah crossing. The move was seen as evidence of Egyptian concerns over a massive exodus of Palestinian refugees into Sinai. In a speech on October 12, Egyptian President al-Sisi pushed back against letting in large numbers of Palestinians. He said, "The threat there is significant because it means the liquidation of this Palestinian cause. It's important for its people to stay steadfast and exist on its land." He also pointed out that Egypt already hosts some 9 million refugees from several countries and warned that Egypt's ability to help has limits. Egypt also seems to see this as a plot to send Palestinians to Cairo. On October 10th, news outlet Al Ahram Online quoted knowledgeable sources as saying there were plans by some parties and forces to forcibly displace Palestinians from their land and resettle them in Sinai. El-Sisi has publicly doubted that should any mass displacement to Egypt take place, the hundreds of thousands of ejected Palestinians would be allowed to return, as has been the case in previous conflicts. Palestinians and Arab nations are marked by the experience of the 1948 war surrounding Israel's creation, when Palestinians were expelled or forced to flee to neighboring countries and have not been allowed to return since. Egypt's National Security Council, in its meeting on October 15, reaffirmed that its priority is Egypt's national security, saying anything that affected it is a red line. The government has also clearly stated its rejection and denunciation of any displacement or liquidation of the Palestinian cause at the expense of neighboring countries, and proposed a regional summit on the development and future of the Palestinian cause. Movement through the Rafah crossing is normally extremely limited, with only Gazans with permits as well as foreign nationals able to use it to travel between Gaza and Egypt. But the border has been effectively sealed shut in recent days. Western efforts to reopen the crossing and evacuate their nationals from Gaza continued over the weekend, with the U.S. advising Americans in the Strip to move closer to Rafah in case the crossing opened if it was possible for them to relocate safely. Meanwhile, hundreds of Palestinians with foreign passports have flocked to the border but have been left sitting in the streets for hours. Al Kahira News, a local news channel linked to the government, citing Egyptian sources, reported on October 14 that Egyptian officials were not allowing U.S. and other foreign nationals to use the crossing because a deal had not been struck on facilitating aid into the Strip. Amid the chaos and confusion, as more Palestinians, particularly those with dual nationality and other foreign nationals, continue to move towards the Egyptian border, the concentration of people near the Rafah crossing may lead to increased tensions.